tropical meteorology project at Colorado State University. We're partnering with I.I.I to produce this resilience project, which is hopefully going to provide a very useful resource to better help the insurance industry as well as the general public better prepare for the next big hurricane. So we've been making Atlantic seasonal hurricane forecasts at Colorado State University since 1984. So Dr. Bill Gray, who founded the seasonal hurricane forecast, was teaching tropical meteorology in 1982 at CSU. And he was a real history buff. He knew all the historical hurricane seasons, and he knew all the weather patterns that had happened in these previous years. And he noted that when you have El Nino conditions, which is warmer than normal water in the eastern and central tropical Pacific, you tend to have fewer hurricanes in the Atlantic. So you had this statistical relationship, and then he spent a lot of time and tried to figure out physically why would something going on in the tropical Pacific impact hurricanes thousands of miles away, and he found it was through alterations in upper level winds that tend to tear apart the hurricanes. So that was one of the first predictors that he used when we started doing these seasonal forecasts in 1984. This is our 36th year of doing seasonal forecasts. Since that, obviously, things have changed quite a bit. We still use El Nino with our seasonal forecasts, but we also use water temperatures in other parts of the world, pressure patterns, various other wind patterns, and we use all of these different parameters to try to be able to determine how active the upcoming hurricane season is likely to be. We find that in general, active seasons in the past had one set of climate conditions, inactive seasons had a different set of climate conditions. And so that's what we try to look for every year is, does this look more like an active season or more like an inactive season? So when it comes to the seasonal forecast, the general public, is always very curious. They want to know how active the season is going to be, similar to the way at the start of the baseball season you want to know who's going to win the World Series. And we think we have a little more predictability than you do at predicting baseball seasons. And so what we try to do though is this is only for the Atlantic basin as a whole. So this is the entire Atlantic Ocean. We can't say where the storms are going to go. So while in general more active seasons have more landfalling hurricanes, just because an inactive season, say, was going to be predicted, doesn't mean you won't be impacted very significantly by a hurricane. Two fairly recent examples of this was one year was 1983. It was an incredibly quiet season. We only had 4 storms form that entire year in the Atlantic, but we had one, Hurricane Alicia, which didn't form until late August. So we had gone almost halfway through the season with no storms. But Hurricane Alicia did a lot of damage in the Houston metropolitan area. Similarly, in 1992, we were doing seasonal forecasts. Dr. Gray had a great forecast that year, only one major hurricane. We only had one major hurricane that year, but it happened to be Hurricane Andrew, which was a Category 5 that went into South Florida, just south of Miami, and did a tremendous amount of damage. Well, at CSU, we're very interested in conveying the risks associated with hurricane seasons each and every year, and it's fundamentally critical that people be resilient and be ready for when these storms happen. And so what we find is that we use a lot of historical data, and so when we go back and look at these historical hurricanes and you see the damage that they cause, it can really teach you a tremendous amount about what these storms in the past have done, but also prepare us better for future hurricane seasons. So the more resilient we are when these hurricanes come around in the future, as we know they will, we can be better prepared and hopefully better be able to recover when the next hurricane hits.